do you struggle with, or did you struggle with, or do you feel diabetics struggle with the fact of just accepting the facts and the truth of where they're at? Because until I was able to accept the fact that at this point in time in my life, there isn't a cure besides a miracle from God to my condition. And once I embraced it and said, okay, I now have this condition, I need to ask really good questions and be accountable for my health. Because there is no endocrinologist, there's no nutritionist, there is no GP, there is nobody that's going to understand my Heath Stone diabetes better than me. What happens when I take X amount of grams of carbs? What about delayed onset or a drop after exercise? Because when my body throws sugar into my body through my liver because of the adrenaline and the other systems that are activating when I'm working out, because I do high intensity versus going for a walk on a low intensity exercise, I know that I'm going to have a different physiological, mental, emotional, all three of them are affected by the activities that I'm doing. And that's unique to Heath. Chris could literally have the opposite effect due to your systems in your body, and that acceptance of awareness that this is my diabetes, I got to own it. That then leads to your point of seeking the best doctors, ones that will listen and talk to you about the science and then the reality or the theory, I'm going to say, of how diabetes works as a whole. And then how does that affect Heath Stone or Chris Jarvis or someone who's in pre-diabetes, right? That is just really, really thirsty and losing weight rapidly, and they're going, what's going on? You got to take accountability. Would you agree with that? And do you think that's common about everybody?
Yeah, so I would say, having interacted with a lot of people with diabetes, this is true for both type 1s and type 2s, and our human nature is that we sometimes want to make a reason for this to happen that's outside of our control. And with the amount of variables that we have to juggle, you were just mentioning about even within exercise, there's so many different directions that our body could respond. So there was definitely been a time in my life where I felt like there's just nothing I could do. I'm going to need somebody who says, let's try again. Let's try another tactic. Let's look for more information and try again. And so I have encountered a number of people who want to say, oh yes, I've tried this, I've tried it. No matter what you throw out there, they're going to say they've tried it. And if that might be you reflecting back on yourself, know that I've been there too. And it's so valuable to listen to somebody else, to give them a little bit more insight of what's happening and to try again, because that's how we can make our performance go that extra step. Now, in terms of a type 2 that I know, we did this program called No Barriers. And one of these gentlemen that we were coaching along the way had a lot of passion. And it was just so awesome to see when he came into our program, but he had been resisting the fact that he probably needed insulin, right? And his doctor had been kind of nudging him for years. And so when he came in, his blood sugar was at 18. And for those that don't know, blood sugars very well, it's about 4 times higher than it needs to be. Now, when he was supported and surrounded and accepting of getting more information from others, I just saw the biggest flurry of change in his life and the pride that came into his actions. And so I would encourage people that might be thinking, that they can't make any changes, they can't make improvements, to just realize how close you might be to making that next aha moment, that next big leap in your performance. And those people around you are going to be needed for you to keep that change and to maintain it. But they're also going to be there to help you find it as well.
What advice would you have for people that are looking at their lives right now and they're struggling in some way, shape, or form? What things should they consider doing? What actions should they consider taking so that they could live their best life, their ideal form of life?
Great question.
Yeah, I think reflection is going to be a big part of it. And so, you know, I think these things, as you guys allude to, they apply to everything that we're doing. But there's times where we get stubborn, right? And we just want to do it the way we want, but we're not actually listening to the outcomes and associating it with the decisions that we made. And so when I was younger, I'll tell you a story about that. I remember that I'd gone out for dinner with my friends and I'd actually forgotten my insulin. And so we had left and nobody else has to deal with that. But we're there and we waited for probably 40 minutes for this food to arrive at the Cheesecake Factory is where we were. And I was so excited. We'd never been to this restaurant before. And then like the food is finally arriving. And then I thought, okay, you know, look around, and I didn't have my insulin. And so my stubborn side thought, well, I don't want to miss out on this thing. I'm going to have to pay for this food anyway. Like, what am I going to do? Right. And I didn't think about there were other options. You know, being a pretty fit athlete, I could have probably run home and gotten back within 20 minutes. But I decided to start eating. And by the time I finished that dinner, I felt so sick, you know, from not having my insulin on board. It's just such an important part of it's minutes that we're talking about with diabetes, right? If you miss your injection of insulin by 15 minutes, that can affect you for a couple of hours. So reflection is something that I had to use. I had to think about that afterwards and say, you know, not only, you know, should I make a better decision next time, but maybe I could prepare. And we talked about that, right? About not just leaving things to chance, but trying to make sure that I have a system, I have a routine to make sure that I'm prepared. And the next time my friends are out there, I've got a few different tricks up my sleeve to keep me, you know, there with my friends and enjoying things to the best. Now,
excellent. Good story.
I actually have, like, many years later, I'm married now, and we've got kids. And so we don't get out as often as we'd like. And we were out on a date. This is, you know, before COVID. And we were at a dinner theater restaurant, and a very similar thing happened with getting the kids taken care of. I forgot my blood test kit and my insulin. So we're in this dinner theater, and dinner is just about to be served. And I realized, how did I forget, you know? And I'm wearing an insulin pump now. So I had actually left my pump in the bathroom when I showered. I took it off. And so, you know, I had to think about it. And with all that knowledge, I said, well, I wonder if I could find a better solution. So without even telling my wife, I said, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. And being in Toronto, I ran outside. I used my phone. I found the nearest pharmacy was 1 block away. And so I went down there and I picked up another bottle of insulin and a syringe. And got my blood sugar tested and got my insulin, and let me enjoy that night without having any repercussions from the ups and downs of diabetes.
Proactivity, being accountable, and taking appropriate action based on the circumstance to avoid the consequences, right, that are going to affect you, not just physically. And that's what people don't understand, is that this affects us physically, mentally, emotionally, and that high blood sugar will have some symptoms, but the real consequence is that it bites later. When we're burning, it's like a car that's burning oil, but still drives. The consequence comes later when everything's gunged up and, you know, friction and abrasion and all the other things that are going on in the engine, just because we didn't stop and go get some work done, a tune-up, whatever it is that the car needed to fix that issue. So
there's a lot of average Canadians that are on the verge of getting diabetes or on their way on the path to diabetes, probably for a variety of reasons. Could you guys both articulate, just for the average listener, what some of those reasons would be that you're moving towards diabetes? What caused you to get diabetes, and what can the average Canadian do to slow the process or eliminate that risk?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the conversation, Heath mentioned that with type 2 diabetes, our lifestyle can play a big factor. So getting a healthy level of exercise and eating healthy can reduce the chances of you getting type 2 diabetes. But I think it's really important for all those others out there with the potential to get type 2 diabetes to realize that there's also a lot of genetic connections there. And so there are people who are maintaining a pretty active and healthy lifestyle that can still get this disease. And by trying to keep it in your mindset, oh, I'm going to do better. I'm going to, manage my exercise and health better. And actually, I met this gentleman named Dan Hill, and he's famous to me, a musician. Hopefully you guys know his music because it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I met him shortly after his type 2 diagnosis, and he was running every day. He was incredibly fit, and he was barely eating. And we ended up, because we were both in Toronto, we ended up both running together. We hit it off quite well. And I was just so concerned for him because he had been listening to this kind of stigma that really type 2 diabetes can be cured. And for those people that can eat healthy and get active and reduce or eliminate type 2 diabetes, that's fantastic. But for all of those out there that are not able to do it, don't be afraid to listen to your doctors, to explore some medicine that can help you, because that's what Heath and I have to go through every day. We have to take medicine in order to replicate what our pancreas should be doing. And if we don't take our insulin, we're in a lot of trouble. And the reason for type 1 diabetes is different. So in type 2 diabetes, the pancreas could wear down and not perform as well. So that's the case where someone can't get rid of the type 2 diabetes, the pancreas isn't performing. And for Heath and I, we had our immune system attack it. And so why does our autoimmune attack our body? It's usually around stressors. It could be because you're pushing yourself so hard, either in business or physically. It could also be that you're having a pretty relaxed life, but you've just encountered a new, exposure to a virus, right? And so when your immune system is triggered like that, with the right genetic composition, they're still learning and trying to discover why. But it can trigger your immune system to go beyond attacking that virus and actually mistakenly attack your pancreas. And if you haven't heard, there's a lot of other autoimmune diseases out there. I have actually lived with 2 of them. I have celiac disease as well. And so my immune system is pretty confused. And hopefully it doesn't continue to develop more, right? But the more, when you develop an autoimmune disease, it's more likely for you to get another one, because your immune system is making mistakes.
What would you recommend, or do you feel are just the most critical actions that anybody who is diabetic, type 1 or 2, or even somebody that considers themselves to be pre-diabetic, what would you say the most critical actions are that we can, as diabetes and pre-diabetics, do to help bring the quality of our life up, so that we have the ability to actually live our ideal form of life?
Now, I would say the biggest thing that we can do is start sorting the things that we have control over and the things that we don't. And too often, the things over here that we can't control, whether or not you have diabetes, for example, you can't control that any longer. So what can you do about it, right? Or if someone is diagnosed with pre-diabetes, there's still a lot of things that they could do. But for those of us living with a challenge like this, if we can start thinking what I can do about it, that's really going to transform your life. And that sorting is sometimes hard to do because the things that we can't control can muddle and make you think that you can't actually control other things. So I would encourage people to start practicing that and realize, is this something in my control? Okay, I can't control that, but what could I do to make the best of this moment?
My attempt at summarizing the learnings from Chris Jarvis on diabetic performance here today. 1, diabetes is an invisible disability. It's really about self-management of our blood sugar levels versus an automated system that works in a normal functioning process in the majority of people. But we need to be able to be aware and accept wherever we're at and get the help and seek the answers that we need. 2, prediabetes is a critical thing to identify. Our symptoms of this include high levels of thirst, significant urination, blurred vision, rapid weight loss, or even rapid weight gain. And ultimately, the simplest thing is I recommend that you look at the Canadian Diabetes Organization's website, talk with your doctors, and get very valuable information and assess where you are at personally. This is 1 in 3 people in Canada are living with diabetes or prediabetes due to our lifestyles and the choices of what we make. 3 is the key success factors for that diabetic management is simply blood testing and creating great rituals that will empower us to have success from the data, the information that we get from those tests. It doesn't mean less tests means that you're doing better. No, it means test so you can make the good information. With that good information, make great choices. We need to ask and seek the truth through this diabetic testing and realize that high or low numbers are not good or bad. They're just information to help us make a good decision. I'm in different circumstances every day. And unfortunately, I miss something. I miss a test. I, even worse, get excited about a conversation with someone and forget to take my bolus. And then 30 minutes later, I'm getting all the symptoms, the tiredness, the blurry eyes, the tingling, and on. And I go, I forgot. Well, I got to forgive myself, respond, retest, and then react in an appropriate manner. Don't sit there kicking on myself. Just realize it's okay, and I'll be better the next time by taking and making good decisions. Getting those regular checkups that you said and pursuing improvement in those routines that we create and surrounding ourselves with people that have more information or knowledge or experience than I do. Your experience is something that I'm so grateful to be around, to tie into through proximity. Getting into proximity of people that are better than ourselves will help us get to that level. And ultimately, we got to accept what is and seek those people. Because if we don't, you're only going to get what you got. It takes us being willing to grow and change. So outside of creating that process or routine and actual managing our diabetes, it's really simply put, we need to look at the 4 pillars of health that we've talked about many times on our show, Bob, and that is managing our breath and stress control. Stress is the silent killer that will trigger autoimmune deficiencies in many ways, and that's a deep topic on its own, but that's the number one. You gotta just take a moment and analyze where you're at and reduce stress. You need to hydrate. We need to drink water, not pop, not to be rude, but that's bad stuff. It's high carb, high sugar, processed sugar. This stuff is really bad. Eat healthy. It's okay to go on what we call have a gut bomb, right? And a nice yummy burger from A&W or McDonald's or whatever. But it can't be your regular go-to. It's going to harm. I don't care if you're a fully healthy athlete or you're not. It's not good every day. And then, outside of the eating, it's that exercise routine, that 4th pillar. We need to be active and mobile and make sure that we rest accordingly and appropriately based on our level. We need to get those 7 hours of sleep minimum because our body only heals when we rest. So that's all summarized by simply put, we need to be aware and we need to accept and embrace what is and not be afraid and let fear of what will happen in a blood test or what will happen if I go to the doctor and he tells me I'm a diabetic. It's all information, and that information is going to help us all grow and give ourselves the best health we can have so that we get to live our ideal form of life and do the activities that we want with the people we love.
Sometimes it can be overwhelming to think that we're maybe not anywhere close to the path we want to be. Just remember that picking off one of those things, the low-hanging fruit, the thing that you're most likely to commit to, start off there, right? And that's going to gain your momentum towards that full path that you want to be on. And, have the right people around you to support you on that journey.
Chris, so nicely said. Listen, could you tell us just finish us off by telling us a bit about I Challenge Diabetes. That's your organization, and where we can contact you, or people can contact you, or reach out.
Thanks. Yeah, I Challenge Diabetes is something that I started when I was actually competing on the national team back in 2007. And because I was really desperate to have others around me that understood these things and I could actually learn from, we started to do the simplest things, whether going for a run or a hike together. And in that, learn and experience what other people were doing with their management. And now it's grown into a national charity, the largest one in Canada, working with type 1s. And we have some small programs for type 2s focused on exercise. And and so we are available on the website, ichallengediabetes.org, Facebook and Instagram, iChallengeDiabetes. And we do specialize in experiential learning programs. So that would be in person. That could be from, a couple of hours doing an activity together, all the way to 7-day wilderness experiences. These days, we're doing more online discussions and sharing stories, but also getting a chance to ask questions and support each other. I felt just as supported being here with you, so I really appreciate the chance to be on your show.